Welcome back, space fans. You've all been checking out what's new with the ISS, so we're here to sort through all of that with you.
Yeah.
We're diving into this article from the Express Tribune. It's called NASA Astronauts Set for Return After 9-Month ISS Stay Due to Spacecraft Failure.
Wow.
Published March 16th, 2025. 2 astronauts have had their time up in space extended way longer than they planned.
Right.
What exactly happened?
Well, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, they were supposed to come back on Boeing's Starliner.
Okay.
But it ran into a few
What?
hiccups on its first crewed flight.
Hiccups. That's a little bit of an understatement for something that's in space, isn't it?
You would think they'd have that all figured out by now, wouldn't you?
Right.
But no, it had to do with the propulsion system.
Okay.
There were a few issues that came up, and obviously safety is the priority.
Right.
Especially with space travel.
Of course.
So they couldn't use the Starliner to bring them home.
So how long were they stuck up there?
Their stay got extended to 9 months.
9 months on the ISS. That's got to be crazy even for an astronaut.
Well, absolutely. It is a significant amount of time, but it's not totally unheard of.
Okay.
Frank Rubio, a NASA astronaut, actually spent 371 days in space.
Wow.
That's the U.S. record. And then globally, Valery Polyakov, a Russian cosmonaut.
Right.
He spent 437 days on the Mir space station.
That is just mind-boggling. That really puts into perspective the mental and physical strength these astronauts have. But back to Wilmore and Williams.
Okay.
How did they get back?
Yeah, so...
Did they have to wait for like a whole other spacecraft?
No, luckily not. Crew 10 came in on a SpaceX Crew Dragon.
Okay.
And Wilmore and Williams were able to get a ride back on that same capsule.
Oh, wow.
That brought up 2 other astronauts back in September.
Same one?
Yeah.
So they're reusable now?
Exactly. That's one of the coolest new things about space travel.
Yeah.
Reusability is really changing the game, making space exploration more sustainable and less expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like the space version of reduce, reuse, recycle, right?
Right.
What about this Crew 10?
Yeah.
Who are they and what are they doing up there?
Crew 10 is a pretty diverse group. We've got Anne McClain and nichole ayers from NASA.
Okay.
Takuya Onishi from Japan. And Kirill Peskov from Russia.
Wow.
So, it really shows the international collaboration of the ISS.
Right.
They're going to be on the station for about 6 months conducting research,
Okay.
doing maintenance tasks, and getting ready for future deep space missions.
So it's not all just like floating around and looking at the Earth?
No. It's actually a very intense schedule.
Wow.
Lots of responsibility. They're pretty much juggling deadlines, planning future projects.
Oh, wow.
And just dealing with the unexpected, just like we do down here.
Right.
But with a much better view.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great point. It's interesting to think about the parallels.
Yeah.
Between what they do and what we do down here on Earth in all kinds of different jobs. Speaking of deep space exploration, what exactly does that preparation involve?
So that's where things get really interesting. There are so many challenges that come with going deeper into space.
Like what? Is it just like the travel time or is it more than that?
Well, yeah, travel time is definitely a huge factor, especially when you think about going to Mars.
Right.
Which could take years. But there's also things like dealing with radiation exposure.
Oh, yeah.
Psychological effects of being isolated for a long time.
Wow.
Even figuring out how to bring enough food, water, and medical supplies.
Right.
For such a long trip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy when you think about all that goes into it. It's like planning a camping trip, but instead of weekend, you're packing for years.
Right.
And instead of driving, you're launching into space.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. And then there's designing a spacecraft that can actually handle being in deep space.
Right.
For so long.
Yeah.
You've got crazy temperatures and radiation and like micrometeoroids, just to name a few.
So it sounds like preparing for deep space is about the tech, but also about the astronauts.
Yeah.
It's not just about a better rocket. It's about making sure the astronauts are safe and okay.
Exactly. You got it. It's got to be a multifaceted approach.
Right.
And Crew 10 is up there working on that right now.
Okay.
They're doing experiments, testing equipment, getting data that'll be super important for future missions.
It's wild to think that they're up there right now helping us get to Mars someday.
Yeah.
What exactly are they doing to make these missions possible?
Well, one of the main things is the life support systems.
Okay.
They're trying out these closed loop systems that can recycle air and water.
Okay.
So they don't have to constantly be getting stuff from Earth. It's all about making it sustainable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't exactly run to the store when you're millions of miles away.
Exactly. They're also working on better ways to get us to these places faster and more efficiently. Think ion propulsion or even nuclear thermal propulsion. Those could get us there way faster than the rockets we use now.
So this isn't just like small improvements.
Yeah.
This is big stuff.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about huge changes. And we can't forget about the human side of it either.
Right.
They're doing research on what happens to people mentally when they're in space for a long time. They're looking at how teams work, how to deal with stress.
Yeah.
How to stay mentally healthy when you're stuck in a tiny space.
Right.
Because even with a great spacecraft, it's the humans that'll make or break the mission.
It's so interesting how it's all connected. The humans and just that desire to explore. It's like those early explorers who sailed across the ocean.
Right.
But now it's space.
It really is. And just like those explorers, we're going to run into problems along the way. You know, like that Starliner issue.
Right.
It shows us that space travel is still risky.
Yeah.
And we're learning as we go.
It's a good reminder that even with all this cool stuff, things can go wrong and we got to be smart and tough to get through it.
Right. And speaking of tough, you got to admire Wilmore and Williams.
Yeah.
They made the best of their time stuck on the ISS.
Yeah.
They adapted to the situation, stayed focused on their work.
Right.
And came home safe.
It really shows how amazing humans are.
Yeah.
That we want to explore and keep going even when things are hard.
It's inspiring. No matter what gets in our way, we can find a way forward.
Right.
If we work together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this brings us back to the bigger picture. We're going further into space.
Yeah.
And thinking about missions that could take years. So we have to ask some tough questions.
They do.
What?
Well, like how do we keep astronauts safe and healthy on these super long missions? 9 months is a long time, but what about going to Mars?
Right.
And being gone for years? How do we protect them from radiation and stress?
Right.
And what if there's a medical emergency and they're millions of miles away?
Those are some big questions.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize this isn't just about the science. It's also about what's right and wrong.
Exactly. These are conversations that everyone needs to be a part of.
Right.
Not just scientists and engineers, but also people who make policies.
Yeah.
And ethicists and regular people all over the world. The future of space belongs to all of us.
Right.
And we need to think carefully to make sure we're doing the right thing.
It's a huge challenge.
It is.
But I think we can do it.
Yeah.
We've got the smarts and the drive, and we're working together.
Right.
Just like we've done to get this far.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think how far we've come in such a short time.
It is.
From just barely getting into orbit to living on the ISS.
Right.
It's clear that humans dream big.
It's true. And those big dreams, along with our curiosity and our sense of responsibility, will keep pushing us further.
And speaking of responsibility, we're talking about the ethical side of exploring deep space.
Right.
It's one thing to send robots to other planets, but sending people on these long missions is way more complicated.
Absolutely. We have to think about what our impact will be on those other planets.
Yeah.
And if what we're doing is sustainable.
Right.
And what will happen because of the choices we make.
It's like when we explore new places here on Earth. We've learned that it's important to respect the environment.
Right.
And the people who live there. It feels like we need to do the same thing as we go into space.
I agree. It's about being good caretakers of space.
Right.
Not just explorers. And we need to work together as a planet to do this.
Yeah.
We have to talk honestly about why we're exploring space, what the risks are, and how to reduce those risks while making sure what we're doing is good for everyone.
It's a big task.
It is.
But if we approach it with the same kind of teamwork and innovation and determination that got us this far, I think we can do it.
I agree. The future of space is everyone's responsibility. And we need to think critically, listen to different viewpoints, and make good choices that benefit all of us and the universe we live in.
Yeah, it really is. And those big dreams, along with our curiosity and, I guess, a growing sense of responsibility, are going to keep pushing us even further.
That's true.
Speaking of responsibility, we were talking about like the ethics of exploring deep space.
Right.
It's one thing to send robots to other planets, but sending people on these like years-long missions, that's a whole other thing.
Absolutely. We have to think about the impact we'll have on those other planets and if what we're doing is sustainable and what will happen because of the choices we make.
It's like when people explored new places here on Earth.
Yeah.
We learned we got to respect the environment and the people who live there.
Right.
It seems like we need to do the same thing in space.
Exactly. It's about taking care of space, not just exploring it. And we need to work together as a planet on this. We have to talk honestly about why we're exploring space, what the risks are, and how to reduce those risks while making sure what we're doing is good for everyone.
It's a big task, but I think we can do it.
Yeah.
We've got the smarts and the drive.
Uh-huh.
And we're working together.
Right.
Just like we have to get this far.
Right.
So we talk about a lot today, from those astronauts who had their trip extended to the challenges of deep space exploration.
We did.
We went over the latest news, talked about what it all means, and hopefully gave everyone something to think about.
I think so. We talked about how resilient astronauts are and how important it is to work with other countries.
Right.
And how we're always trying to learn more about the universe.
Yeah.
And the ethics of it all.
It's been a fascinating journey, and hopefully you'll all join us for our next deep dive.
Absolutely.
But before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
As we keep going further into space, what kind of future are we creating? What will our legacy be?
That's a great question to think about. It's really up to all of us to decide what the future will be.
Right.
To make sure it's filled with wonder and discovery and respect for the universe.
So keep looking up, stay curious, and never stop exploring.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, there's still so much out there to discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
And as always, thanks for listening.